Question 3, partial fractions. If we look at the question here, the expression given needs to be split into 3 partial fractions. It helps you out a little bit there. It doesn't always tell you this, but because it says 3 partial fractions, that's a reminder that when you have a repeated factor, you need to account for that twice. So what I mean is you would need to put a 2 plus x here and then a 2 plus x squared. So it's important you remember what to do when you have a repeated factor like that. If we call that A, that B, and that's C, then the numerator 5 plus 4x minus 3x squared is going to equal A. Now what do you have to multiply this by to get to this? Well, you need to multiply that by the 2 plus x squared. What do you have to multiply this by to get to this denominator? Well, it's 1 minus 2x, but it's also another 2 plus x. And what do you have to multiply the 2 plus x all squared by to get to the denominator? Well, you need to multiply that by 1 minus 2x. Now, we need to work out what A, B, and C are now. I think the quickest way of finding out which we need to get rid of either B or C. So I think if we put x equals a half, putting x equals a half is going to get rid of this bracket, which means all of this will disappear. So and all of this will disappear. So we'll be able to find out what A is. So the left-hand side, when we put x equals a half into the left-hand side, that will be 5 plus 2 minus 3/4. And the right-hand side will be 2 plus a half all squared. That's 5 over 2 all squared, which is 25 over 4. So we'll have 25 over 4a. And that means if you simplify the left-hand side, that'll be 6 1/4, and the right hand side is also 6 1/4, so that means that A will equal 1. Now, in order to find C, what we could do is put x equals minus 2. If we put x equals minus 2, let's just choose a different color pen. If we choose x equals minus 2, then that means this bracket will equal 0, and so will this bracket. So we'll be able to find out what C is. So if we do that, the left-hand side will be 5 minus 8 minus 2 squared is 4 times by 3. That'll be minus 12. And then the right-hand side, as explained, this will all be 0. This will all be 0. So the right-hand side, when x is minus 2, will be C times by plus 5. So I've just put a minus 2 instead of x there. That means we're going to get 5 minus 20, which is minus 15. Minus 15 divided by 5 is going to tell us that C equals minus 3. And so now we just need to find out what B is. The best way, we can't really do another substitution to find B quickly. So probably the best way is to equate coefficients. I think equating coefficients of x squared is probably the best way, but you could do the coefficients of x, or you could do the constants. But if we equate the coefficients of x squared, let's choose a different color. Let's do that color. On the left hand side, the coefficients of x squared are -3. So we'll have -3 x squared on the left hand side. On the right hand side, the coefficient of x squared, if we multiplied this out, we would end up with ax squared. If we looked at what's going to give us an x squared for the b term, we would have a -2x squared here. So that would be -2b x squared when you multiplied out these brackets. And we're not going to get an x squared from the c term, so we can forget about c. Now bear in mind that we've already worked out what a is. A is 1, and we can just get rid of the x's. So if we get rid of, we could just cancel all these x squares. Don't forget a equals 1, so we're left with -3 equals 1 minus 2b. In other words, 2b equals 4, so that means that b would equal 2. Now the question doesn't have any a, b's and c's in it, so we need to finish our answer with by writing out what the fractions are. So I'll just write the answer at the top here because I'm running out of space at the bottom. But our final answer is going to be 1. So the answer is 1 over 1 minus 2x, and then b is plus 2, so we've got 2 over 2 plus x, and then we've got, sorry, it's not a plus, it's a -3 over 2 plus x all squared. So this will be our final answer, and we're going to need to use that for part 2, I would imagine. In part 2 we're going to need our previous answer, and we're also going to need this formula over here, the binomial expansion. We're going to need to use that because this formula works for all values of n. So if we need to take each value up here separately, do the binomial expansion, and then add them all together. Okay, so if we take the first one, the first fraction, 1 over 1 minus 2x, we'll do the binomial expansion for that. We can write it as 1 minus 2x all to the power minus 1. And then we can sub it into this equation here on the right hand side. We've already got 1 here, so that's good. We don't need to do any rearranging inside the bracket. We could just substitute, instead of x, we can replace it with minus 2x. Instead of n, we can replace it with a minus 1. If we stick those values into this formula over here, we only need the first 3 terms, by the way. So the first term is obviously going to be 1. The second term is minus 1 times by minus 2x. And the third term is minus 1 times minus 2. And then minus 2x all squared. And that's over 2 factorial. And we don't need any more terms. If we simplify that, we've got 1 plus 2x. All of this is going to be, that's going to be 4x squared over there. So that's 4x squared times by 2. So that's 8x squared over 2, which will become 4x squared. Then we need to do the second one. So we need to do this one next. So if we do a similar thing for that, we'll get leave the 2 as it is and bring the bracket, the denominator, up to the top. Now this time we've got 2 here, which is a bit of a pain. We've got to take that out because we can only use this formula when we have a 1 inside the bracket. So let's take the 2. Ignore this 2. Let's take this 2 out. We'll have 1 plus a half x here, but we've still got a minus 1. So let's deal with that. That will be 2 to the minus 1 times by 1 plus a half x to the minus 1. Now I recommend you don't try and do a shortcut here. You write all these steps out. 2 times by 2 to the minus 1 is a half, so these are just going to cancel. So really all we want to do is expand that now. If we do that, we've got replace x with a half x in the formula, we replace n with minus 1, and we're going to get 1 plus minus 1 times by a half x plus minus 1 times by minus 2 times by a half x all squared all over 2 factorial, which is just 2. So that will give us, that's just going to give us 1 minus a half x. And what's this all going to give us? That will be a quarter x squared times by 2 divided by 2. So that will just be a quarter x squared, or x squared over 4. And then the last thing we need to add up is this over here, number 3. So if we do that one, we've got minus 3. We've got 2 plus x to the minus 2. Now we need to do something similar to what we did before. So we've got minus 3, take the 2 out, and that will give us 1 plus a half x. This time we need to put minus 2 here and a minus 2 here. So that will end up being 2 to the power minus 2 is going to be a quarter. So at the front of this, we're going to have minus 3 quarters. And then we need to times that by 1 plus a half x all to the power of minus 2. So now we can do the binomial expansion, replace x with a half x just like we did last time, replace n with minus 2 this time, and do the binomial expansion. And we're going to get, don't forget the minus 3 quarters at the front. We're going to get minus 3 quarters times by 1 plus minus 2 half x plus minus 2 times minus 3 times a half x all squared, and all of that's going to be over 2 factorial. Now if you simplify all of that, hopefully you'll end up with minus 3 quarters plus 3 quarters of x minus 9 over 16 x squared. So we've done our 3 separate expansions. Now this is hard work for 5 marks. We're still not finished, by the way. We've just got to add up everything now. So yeah, we need to add that to that to that, and I'm running out of space, so I'll just delete the top bit. We just need to add these up. So 1 plus 2 plus 3. If you do add these up, you should find out that you get a final answer of 5 over 4 plus 9 over 4x plus 59 over 16 x squared, which is the final answer to part 2. Part 3, you need to remember that this expansion only works, you can only use this expansion if the thing that is here, the thing you sub in for x, if the modulus of that is less than 1. So in this first expansion here, that expansion only works if minus 2x, if the modulus of all of that is less than 1. Now because you're doing the modulus, that minus sign doesn't make any difference. So the first expansion only works if the modulus of x is less than a half, if you just divide both sides by the 2. And then for both this expansion and this expansion, we need a half x, modulus of a half x, to be less than 1. In other words, the modulus of x has to be less than 2. because we're just multiplying both sides by